No, it was not all right. I think that now you'll be able to hear me. Also, I hope. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, I'll start recording this. Well, thank you all for showing up. My name is Carlos Frederico, and I'm doing this stream right from Brazil. I have a beer channel in the social media where we discuss aspects related to home brewing and beer science and some issues of the beer market. I am a chemist teacher. Also, I have a sister channel, let's say something like that, that it's in English. So, hence why I'm doing this chat in English. And you can follow us on the whole social media. And also, if you are unable to watch this stream, we'll put it on a podcast so you can hear it after we are done. Well, that said, thank you all for coming and showing up. If you have any issues, any questions, any comments, or any uh, anything at all, you may place it on our chat. Only Facebook, I think, is not connected. We cannot get comments from Facebook as it's not interactive. But Twitch, yes. Facebook, yes. The live, yes. All right. So today, talk will be about post-COVID-19 Brazilian beer market trends and expectations. Oh, first of all, I would like to state my condolences and feelings to anyone who lost a friend or a relative or parent, anything, dear one, close one, to this terrible pandemic that's COVID-19. At the same time, I really would like to extend my sincere thanks to everyone that could not stay at home as it was dealing with some essential services such as people, healthcare people, or food services, or distributions, or firefighter, police forces, and so on. I'd like to thank you all for putting your lives on the front line for the rest of us. At the same time, we sincerely hope that this pandemic will now come to an end with the increasing number of vaccines that's putting on the market. And well, I think that will be finally the end of it. At the same time, if you need, please keep your social distance, and if you need to leave home, do so, but use a face mask, uh, keep your hands sanitized, wash them, use rubbing alcohol, and avoid any gathering of people, large numbers of persons, to stop the spread of this terrible disease. Well, that said, let's get on with uh, the topic at hand. which would be yes, Marcos, that's in English. I hope you can all understand me. Well, let's get on with the topic at hand. That would be discussion of trends and expectations on the post-COVID-19 Brazilian beer market. First of all, I'd like to say that under no circumstances this will be a full coverage. I am not that smart or not well versed on the issues on the topic at hand, so I can't really not deal with it all on my own. But at the same time, we have gathered a few aspects of it and put it all together, and we'll try to present it to you. At the same time, we'd like to, let's say, share our experiences, what's happening in Brazil in the beer market that was hit, actually the whole society was hit by the COVID-19, but especially focused on the beer market, how it is coming on Brazil, what's happening, and what we think, what we might believe would be ahead of us in the future as we pass this terrible pandemic. Okay, that said, let's move on. So, I must state, COVID-19 started in 2019 and it began in Brazil early 2020, and it spread throughout the country. There is not a single place in Brazil that has not been affected by it. As you can see from this chart from Award in Data, that's cumulative COVID-19 cases per million people as of May 7th, 2021. And as you can see, we are now above 70,000 cases per million people. So it places us in one of the most affected countries in the world by COVID-19. Our second chart, also from Award in Data, indicates the daily confirmed COVID-19 deaths by million people. And again, it put us over, slightly over 2,000 deaths. That's the 7 days rolling media. And once again, we are one of the most affected countries in the world. So we are now above, a little above 60,000 cases daily and a little above 2,000 deaths, sadly a little above 2,000 deaths daily. That would be 7 days rolling media. That said, I must stress that COVID-19 hit us really bad. It affected the whole country. There is not a single place in Brazil that was not affected, and at the same time, it really affected economic issues at our country. Well, moving on. So that we may have an idea what's happening in the beer market, specifically in the beer market, I would like to present to you the evolution at the last 10 years of the main ingredients used in the beer making. That would be barley, wheat, rice, corn, and hops. Sadly, I could not find similar data on yeast. So as you may see, in the past 10 years, barley became cheaper from 202 US dollars for metric ton. It now got to 138. So you have a barley becoming cheaper around the world. Wheat, wheat also became cheaper from 307 to 240 US dollars by metric ton of wheat. Rice is on the rise. It got from 484 to 557 United States dollar per metric ton. Corn, maize, also lowering its prices from 319 to 245 US dollars per metric ton unit. So as you can see from the four more used grains in beer making, all of them except for rice became cheaper. I must also point out that in the past 1.5 years there has been a slight rise on the grain prices, but as you take it over these 10 years there has been a reduction on the prices of these ingredients. So I would say that it is cheaper now to make beer, I think, or at least from the ingredients point of view, costs. All right. Hops. Hops. I only found out a study presenting the evolution of hops from the past 10 years. That would be to 2019. I think it's the last number. And as you can see, there has been a nice steady rise on hops value from 3.28 to 5.68 United States dollar per pound of hops. So although grains lowered, hops were on the rise. So we would have to take a better look into these all ingredients to see how much they influence on the beer making value. But that's for ingredients. We'll now focus on the Brazilian beer market. These are data taken from the a study, a survey of the Ministry of Agriculture in Brazil, which also, let's say it, for you to own a brewery or any beer related business in Brazil, you have to register it in the Ministry of Agriculture, and especially for the breweries. Those are breweries numbers. As you can see, in 2020, we had like 40 breweries in the country, in Brazil. And now, at 2020, we have 1,383 breweries. As you may notice, this is a major increase in these past 20 years. There has been a really large expansion on the number of breweries in Brazil. We are ending now this year with almost 1,400 breweries in Brazil registered. In this last year, 2020, there were 204 new breweries registered, but 30 were closed. So we have a net change of 174 new breweries opening, which may add like 14% change or rise in the number of breweries in Brazil. Okay, so that's for the number of breweries. At the same time, as we take a closer look at this data, we'll see there is an uneven distribution of these breweries across the Brazilian territory, the Brazilian states. 85% of these breweries are located in the south and southeast regions. Of course, that's to be expected as these are more populated regions of Brazil, so it will be most likely to have the bigger number of breweries in it, but it's 85% of them all, and only 15% are located in the north, northwest, and center of Brazil. Also, 2020 is a special year for Brazilian beer market, as from this year on, all states in Brazil have at least one brewery. That's the first time it happens. As we can pin out states, we will have 4 states that will be São Paulo, Rio Grande do Sul, Minas Gerais, and Santa Catarina. These 4 states are located in the south-southwest regions, and as you sum up all these 4 states, you have above 65% of all breweries established in Brazil. Also, these breweries are mostly located in big cities, but that's again to be expected, and there is nothing unusual or strange about it. It's only natural. All right, let's move on. This chart presents to you the number of beers, not breweries, but beers registered in Brazil. Anytime a brewery wants to put a new beer in the market and has a new recipe, that recipe must be also registered under the Ministry of Agriculture. So as you can see, this is the past 10 years. Until 2013 we have sort of a rise, but a small one. But from 2014 on, there is a huge increase on the number of new recipes, new products registered under the Ministry of Agriculture. And this last year, 2020, there was the first drop on the number of registered recipes or registered products. As you can see, in 2019 we reached our peak that was close to 10,000 items registered in a single year. That's not cumulative, that's in a single year registers. And in 2020 there is a slight drop to 80,459 new products registered. So for the first time there has been a drop in these numbers. If you take it and split it over the states in Brazil, you see that São Paulo state by far has the biggest number of registered products, followed by Santa Catarina, Minas Gerais e Rio Grande do Sul, as those 4 comprises the 4 states that has the most numbers of breweries in Brazil. They sum up 65% of all the breweries in Brazil, as we have said already. All right. So you may have a better an understanding of what I'm saying if you take a look at this chart where the size of the circles represent the number of beers of breweries in each state of in each county. Actually, yes, that's by county. So as you can see, the bottom part of Brazil, the south part of Brazil, has the largest circles, which represents the highest number of breweries. And as you go moving upwards towards the north of Brazil, you see that there is a few smaller circles representing smaller number of breweries. And that's the uneven distributions of breweries around the Brazilian territory, but that's to be expected, as I already told you. The breweries are located in the biggest cities, and of course, logically, they will be located in the most populated areas. That will be southeast of Brazil, so that's to be expected, and there is nothing wrong with that. One thing I'd like to point out is that as there is a larger number of breweries around the whole Brazilian territory, then it means that the whole population of Brazil will have access to craft beer. There is a huge issue on distribution of products around the whole Brazilian territory, of course, as is in any large country. That's to be expected. But as you have a brewery in your state or in your county, you are able to get craft beer fresh and nicely available. So that's a plus for the population, for the beer drinking population at least. Well, uh, so on these numbers as I present them to you, we'll begin to make some thoughts and considerations over them, see how they can provide us with some insights about what will be the Brazilian beer market post-COVID-19. So first of all, these numbers, they are from 2020, but you must understand that the build, the project, and the actual establishment of a brewery is not something that's easily done, so it takes quite a while to be until you are open, let's say that. And most likely these numbers from 2020 refer to actual projects that started in 2019, that's before COVID-19, and they came to be open on 2020 under COVID-19. So only next year, when the Ministry of Agriculture offers the report from 2021, we will have actual numbers telling us what happened under the full pressure of COVID-19 pandemic. Of all the 1,383 new breweries established in 2020. 96% of them were small breweries. That is really, really nice and indicates to us there is a strong movement towards craft beer, towards small breweries, toward diversification of the market. That's really, really nice and interesting. At the same time, if you take the beer production, the volume of beer produced in Brazil in 2020, 96% of this beer production came from the big breweries. So only 4% of the Brazilian beer production comes from small brewery. That's quite a number, and we must take a nice look at it. So we have a really, really large number of breweries, small breweries, but associated to them there is a really, really small volume of beer production associated to them. Yes, okay. So in 2020, what we may see is a lost market for the craft beer around -1%. At the same time, the big ones, the big breweries, took that market. As we may say, there is no market that doesn't has an owner or is not occupied. So if craft beer reduced its participation, the big ones, the mainstream beers, comes to occupy it. At the same time, we saw several investments that were postponed, delayed. So somewhere to expand its breweries or install new plants, these investments were delayed, postponed. They were not made on the year 2020. But at the same time, we have some nice news where some investments were, yes, made in the year 2020, as there will be a new malt house which will be built in Brazil, and it's expected to take over 30%, 30 or 40, I'm not sure about the actual figure, but it's like 30 or 40% of the malt, of the whole malt used in Brazil. That's a really, really nice thing to happen for the Brazilian beer market, that we may have a huge player indoors in our country making malt for us, and I will explain that a bit on why it's so important to have this malt house in Brazil. Okay, so in 2020, actually before in 2019, 2018, we had already this happening. That was a shortage on glass bottles. We have a huge issue with glass bottles, and that hit pretty bad the small breweries. The big ones, the big brewers, usually they have full supply chain, so they actually make their own bottles. We hear some numbers that the big ones make about 30 to 50% of their bottles are made by their own, so they have less issues with bottles. There were problems in supply chains. We have problems to obtain malts and hops. So what the answer of the market to these problems, especially for the glass bottles? Cans, aluminum cans are hugely on the rise in Brazil. They are coming very, very strong. That was already a movement we saw from years before COVID, but right now it really, let's say, aluminum cans came to stay. And plastic bottles, that was quite a surprise. Plastic bottles and plastic rollers are on the rise. If you take it a few years back, you most likely would never see a beer in a plastic container on the commercial market. But now it's usual. You don't see it selling on the markets, but you can see it sold in brew pubs or on takeaways or on brewery owned pubs. We have also tap rooms where people take plastic rollers and they are used. All right. So plastic rollers are on the rise, well accepted and used. Most of them, I think, were used to be disposable, but here we reuse them. They are recycled, so you can use them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times, as many times as you can. Of course, with proper sanitization and also making sure you don't have any problems with fractures to avoid any explosion from the pressure. As I told you, in the past year there was a rise on the cost of ingredients on the overall international market, but for Brazil in particular it hit us really bad because we all these ingredients are its prices are established by international markets and they are done in dollar, US, United States dollar. And you may not know, but our coin, real, the Brazilian coin, Brazilian real, has suffered a major devaluation towards United States dollar. In the year 2020, we lost like 20% of our value. So it's like only from the coin relation in the year 2020 we lost 20% of our buying power. Let's say if we needed 100 reais to buy things, now we need 20% more. Now we need 120. This cost, at some point, it was transferred to consumers, but for some breweries it was not. They lowered their profit margin and tried to cope with this increase. Also, there was a huge issue with the working hours restrictions. So as you have rise on COVID-19 numbers, several states and counties establish restrictions on the working hours of bars, pubs, restaurants, and it was like, well, this week 10 days, 14 days you have to be closed, and when the numbers lowers you can open back, and as the numbers rise again you close again, and that was like this open and closure thing. So that put us on a huge issues as we can't really program productions. If you take for instance uh, brewery productions, it was like at the start of COVID it was about 65%, and when there was the first wave really big hit, it came down to almost 18% of the established productions. So it means that if you were producing 100 liters, now you would produce like 30. And then it rose again as the first wave lowers. There was a rise on the production, it came back to 65%. And then as the second COVID wave hit us, it began again to lower. Now I think it's about 30% of the production in the breweries, in the small breweries, okay? Not on the large one, but on the small brewers, craft beer. Remember, we are focused on craft beer. I'm not trying to chat here about the big ones, but the small breweries. What we can see of the small breweries, there was a huge turn to e-commerce. You have seen so many new beer online shops uh, opening doors on the e-commerce market. Also, you have a major turn to social media. So now people really advertise its beer by the social media. And here in Brazil, that is strongly related to WhatsApp. WhatsApp now it's really used to advertise beer and craft beer. Also, we feel there is a loss of like 35% of the jobs. So in the craft beer market, 35 of the jobs were wiped out by COVID-19. It was mostly in brew pub, restaurants, pubs, and other beer vendors. That should be on the directly related to consumers, not on the markets and not on the breweries themselves. Those mostly managed to keep their jobs, but brew pubs, tub rooms, restaurants, any sort of pubs, many of them completely shut down. So the biggest hit was on these jobs. Also, you have a huge number of uh, people who cannot meet its costs anymore, and it became a non-payment issue. Some of them tried to make compromises and get money from banks, but it's not easy, as small beers, small breweries do not have such a big financial breadth to maintain this cost of loans. So it's quite hard on them. What would be some of the strategies used by the craft beer market to ensure the selling of its products. As you may see, e-commerce really on the rise, a lot doing e-commerce. Delivery, delivery or its own or by app. So all you have on its own, it's WhatsApp. So many of them have a WhatsApp number on its commercial cell phone, so you just buy the beer, and it had some guys in motorbikes or cars which move and bring the beer to your house, to your home, or by commercial apps. That's done too. Takeaway or drive-through, where you go, you get your beer and you go away. You cannot stay there to drink. And direct sales, there is also some of this. Those strategies are well used, but there is not a single one that you may say, this strategy, okay, yes, it does works. That's what we will use. There is not a single, let's say, for some place, for some places it works nicely, and in others not so nicely. So in a town, e-commerce might be the big hit, and as you move to another state or another county, then it's delivery, on delivery of the brewery, that's the best strategy used, or the takeaway. So there is not really a single one strategy that would be the best one to be used. Also, you have to try them all and see what will be the best one for you. As you can see, the biggest increases were in e-commerce, in delivery, and in markets. Markets or supermarkets here in Brazil, they were always open. They are labeled as essential service, as they sell food, so they cannot close. They must remain open, and beer is sold in these markets. But the, let's say, craft beer has a presence in market, but it's not so significant. It's not so big. That would be a more uh, big breweries related market, let's say. Okay. Also, I must say, in the past years, chain, some market chains began to produce their own craft beers. So that's also they are putting this their own craft beer, their own brands to sell in the markets. So that's another competition toward the craft beers breweries. Also, there was a good, let's say, survey made among the small breweries association, and there is a general feeling of about 65% of small brewery owners, they feel they have a high to moderate risk of closure in 2021. So many of them might shut down operations in 2021 and wait for the COVID-19 to end before they begin operations again, if ever. As you surely understand, if you shut down your factory, there is still a maintenance cost. If you will be able to maintain it closed for a long period of time, that is to be seen. Okay. So now we begin to chat about what we might expect, what we might feel will happen. There is a feeling that the pandemic will not go away so soon. Surely, when it started, I was one of the persons that believed this to be something like about 6 months, 8 months, and it would be over. And we are now going to the second year, already a year and a half in this pandemic, and it's not over. In fact, we are right on the middle of the second wave in Brazil. Also, there is a very slow vaccination in the in Brazil, with a lot of issues, and what we see is that there is no vaccine productions enough for the whole world. So there is a steady flow of vaccine, but very small in numbers. So we now have, like, I think 15% of the population that got its first dosage, first dose, first jab, and I think something like 8 or 9% of the population with a full 2-dose immunization, vaccination. So I believe that the restrictions will remain as numbers rise. Non-essential commerce will be closed. As numbers lowers, those commerces will be back to open doors. This places a huge uncertainty and fortune on the business. The business owners doesn't know if it can buy or not stock, as it doesn't know if it will be open or not. I must state that beer does not have a long shelf life, even more for craft beer, and again more for craft beer that doesn't is sterilized, let's say pasteurized, or doesn't have a heat treatment to extend its shelf life. So that's a big issue, as you can't have a large stock, as it will be lost if you don't sell. We have a feeling that e-commerce and delivery will surely become stronger, and even after post-COVID-19, even after COVID-19, it will keep on stronger and stronger. There is a fair sense of how easy it is to buy beer and any other products by e-commerce or delivery. Also, as you have supply chain issues, especially for the small breweries, we are already noticing that there is some partnerships and agreements coming in order between several small breweries to make big orders of ingredients, of bottles or plastic growlers or cans or so. So we think that this will become more and more common, these partnerships to buy ingredients. Also, we have to note the drink at home habit. More and more we are seeing people doing this, so you kind of relate this to e-commerce and delivery. So you buy your beer through e-commerce or delivery, and it comes to your home and you will drink at home. So we must really have a close look at what will happen at tap rooms, brew pubs, and pubs in general. Uh, I think restaurants will not be much affected by it, but we must see what will happen in the future to those habits. If people will return to consume beer at pubs, or if this drink at home habit will be uh, kept and become a steady thing in society. Also, as any crisis, of course, there is a market reorganization. So the big ones, as they have stronger uh, presence in the markets, they will increase its market share. The small ones, as they don't have such uh, big facilities, let's say, as the big breweries, the small ones will lose its market share. If that loss of market share will result in closure of small breweries, we can't really say. We must see what will be strategies that each one will uh, use to remain in the beer market. For instance, what we are uh, feeling and we came to realize, premium and extra premium products which have a high value added to them, and that the breweries in Brazil kind of came to offer them more and more. These premium and extra premium products are less affected by the hit of COVID-19 pandemic on economics. Actually, most likely they will increase in number and share. So we can see already an offering of uh, new products on that market share, premium and extra premium products. Well, those were our thoughts and considerations on the issue at hand, that would be post-COVID-19 Brazilian beer market. And no circumstances this is a full report or in-depth analysis of the Brazilian beer market. These are but a few of the things we have noticed around these few months, and I just would like to share it with them, and also would like to know how it is in your own country. How was the beer market affected by the COVID-19? What were the strategies used by the craft beer makers in your country to keep on? Right now, the feeling is something like that. We must keep on till the pandemic is over. After the pandemic ends, it will all come to normal, or at least to the new normal. And that's it. I hope you enjoy it. And I ask you, there is down below all our social media. There is also a YouTube channel in English, that's Homebrew Brazil HB, where we keep only the English staff. The Canal Shops, it's a mix, 90%, 95% in Portuguese, and some of the things we do in English. And I hope you enjoy. Again, we would like to extend our condolences and feelings to all that lost a dear one to COVID-19. And we would also thank again all the people who are doing its essential business that can't stop and must carry on with its job and work. So I thank you all. Remember, we are under a pandemic. If you must go outside, use a mask, avoid crowds, and also keep your hands always sanitized. Thank you. See you around. Stay safe and be well. Bye bye.